What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Nash here. Welcome back to the channel. Now before we get started with this week's interesting episode of WWE's Biggest Issue, the road to 200 subs has now come to a close, and we're now on the road to 500 subs. Who knows? Maybe we might hit 500 subs by the end of the summer. Only time will tell. But as I have said in previous videos, if this channel does get to 500 subs, I will open up this Korean LOB booster box in its entirety on the channel that I got from my partners over at Collector Store. So be sure to check them out. Link and address will be in the description below. By checking them out, not only does it support them, it also supports the channel, and I would greatly appreciate it. On the hopes to potentially pull a Blue Eyes White Dragon, a Dark Magician, a Red Eyes Black Dragon, a piece of Exodia, Monster Reborn, Pot of Greed. The possibilities are out there. However, if this channel gets to 1,000 subs, I will open up this first edition Toon Chaos box in its entirety on the channel that I also got from my partners over at Collector Store, on the hopes to potentially pull a collector's rare out of the set, much similar to what I pulled out of my Genesis Impact box that I opened up last year, which is this beautiful B-Cop from the Underworld collector's rare. This thing does look absolutely amazing as a collector's rare. I've heard a lot of rumors that with all the new dark-based decks that are going to be coming out into the format, apparently this card might be coming in quite handy. But with that being said, if you guys want to see those boxes get opened, maybe you guys want more episodes of WWE's Biggest Issue. Maybe you guys want more episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh's Biggest Issue, deck profiles, card discussions, WWE topic videos, or maybe, just maybe, you guys want some premium live event predictions and results. Well, if you guys want all of that and more, my channel is the place to be. So if you guys are new to the channel, and I know that a lot of you guys are, because more than 85% of you guys are watching the content, but you guys aren't even subscribed. And to top it all off, we got to get more women to watch the content as well. So if you guys are watching the content, you like the content, and you want more of the content, but you guys haven't done so already, then make sure you guys do indeed subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, smash that thumbs up button on this video, and as always, make sure you guys are following me on all of my social media. All of my ads will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. And I want you guys to post in the comments below answering the question of the day, which in a way it kind of ties with this week's episode. But the question of the day is this: what would you consider to be a dream match involving both WWE and TNA? Let me know down in the comments below. And for this week's episode of WWE's Biggest Issue, the fallout of not only NXT Battleground, but also WWE Clash at the Castle from this past Saturday, has left us with more questions than answers. And one of the biggest questions is why? Why did CM Punk screw Drew McIntyre out of the World Heavyweight title? And also, could we also see TNA's champions defending their titles on WWE soil? And also, the big question, which is actually going to be the title of this week's episode: should WWE and TNA have their own PLE together, as in a collaborative PLE? Honestly, that right there is probably one of the biggest questions that has been asked by so many fans ever since Jordynne Grace made an appearance in the Women's Royal Rumble match back in January, which, to be fair, First off, shout outs to Prime. Absolutely incredible. Shout outs to Logan Paul. I know that when it comes to his time in WWE, he can be a bit of an ass. But he's probably one of the from what I've seen in Mr. Beast's videos, and from a couple of his podcast episodes that I've seen, he's one of the nicest dudes I've ever seen. This is an awesome drink, so get yourself some Prime. Anyway, getting off topic here. Which, to be fair, we did not expect Jordynne Grace to make an appearance in the Women's Royal Rumble match. We didn't even expect anybody from TNA to make an appearance on NXT soil, let alone have a match on NXT TV, and even have a match at Battleground. We didn't expect it whatsoever. But what's interesting is that when you look at TNA's roster, you look at the roster, it's basically the list of who's who. You've got guys like Ace Austin. You have guys like AJ Francis or Top Dollar, if you guys remember him. Women like Alicia Edwards, women like Ash by Elegance or Dana Brooke from WWE, Brian Myers or Kurt Hawkins in WWE. Guys like Crazy Steve, women like Danny Luna, who was once a part of NXT UK. Guys like Eddie Edwards, who technically who is a TNA original, as is Eric Young, even Gail Kim, Frankie Kazarian. They're all TNA originals. And what's even more crazy is that the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff Hardy, are also back in TNA. You also have as well guys like Kushida, guys like Mike Santana, Moose. You've got the Rascals, Mustafa Ali, Rhino, Rich Swann. You even also have some guy named Joe Hendry. Heard a lot about the guy. Apparently his name has now become some sort of like weird ass meme or something like that. I don't know why. Who else is in TNA? Sammy Callahan, Santino Marella, Shera, which Shera was a beast back in the day. Trent Seven, Tasha Steeles. Who else? Tommy Dreamer, Zaya Brookside. You've got a lot of you have a lot of TNA originals. In fact, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see, 5 so far. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You literally there are a dozen TNA originals, and the question that's been on everyone's mind is what are the pros and cons of WWE having a PLE in collaboration with TNA? There are so many different elements that can go into all of this. For one, if they do a PLE featuring both TNA and NXT, or as I think Jordynne Grace called it, NXTNA, obviously they would end up having about like maybe at least three of TNA's champions defending their titles on WWE soil. And of course, too, when it comes to NXT, they would end up having the same. 3 titles as well, maybe even 4 for all we know. So that's one thing. That's one thing. As far as like who I would see, who I see defending their titles on WWE soil, hands down, Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace definitely comes into mind because we saw, what was the show? Against All Odds, if I remember correctly. Again, guys, it's been years since I've watched TNA, but I don't think my cable provider has TNA now, so unfortunately I am unable to watch it. But from what I saw, from what I had seen on Instagram, Tatum Paxley made the jump, became the first NXT superstar to make the jump from NXT over to TNA, and challenged Jordynne Grace for the TNA Knockouts title. And what I find interesting is that the TNA Knockouts title has a lot of rich history dating all the way back all the way back to all the way back to when all the way back to when Gail Kim, actually Gail Kim, funny enough, I believe is the only woman in TNA history to have the most reigns so far of 7. No one else has been able to reach that level except for only one person, and that's Angelina Love. She was one away from tying Gail Kim. Now is at 6 reigns. The only person that has held the title the longest is obviously Gail Kim at 711 days, which is insane. And what's crazy is that it goes all the way back to October 14th, 2007. It was actually debuted. It actually debuted all the way back in 2007 at their pay-per-view known as Battle for Glory. Which, funny enough, ideally, think about this. What if, right? It's a huge what if. What if NXT had the rights to Battle for Glory? We will get to that here in just a second. But going back to the TNA Knockouts title, there have been well over there have been about there have been several dozen Knockouts champions dating all the way back to Gail Kim. Excuse me. And then of course just going down the line, you know, Awesome Kong, Taylor Wilde, Angelina Love, Tara, ODB, let's see here, Madison Rayne, Tara, I mentioned, Mickey James, Winter, Velvet Sky, Miss Tessmacher, Havoc, Taryn Terrell, Brooke, Jade, Sienna, Allie, Maria Kanellis, if you can actually believe it, Rosemary, Sienna again, Laurel Van Ness, and then just going down the line even further, Tessa Blanchard, Jordynne Grace, Deonna Purrazzo, Tasha Steelz. It just goes on. And so altogether there have been 64 champions altogether. As far as like new champions goes, 26 new champions. So 24, over 24 champions, which is amazing. So as far as that goes, we saw we had seen Jordan Grace dominate TNA with an iron fist, and the fact and the fact remains is that the Knockouts title, again, as I mentioned, has a lot of rich history. So I could totally see Jordan Grace defending her Knockouts title at a NXT PLE. Mustafa Ali is definitely another one that comes into mind that I could see defending his X Division title against someone the likes of like Wesley, or perhaps like Tyler Bate, or for all we know, maybe even Josh Briggs for all we know, because we've seen in the past big men have held that very same X Division title. Guys like Bobby Lashley, guys like Samoa Joe, just to name a couple, all held that X Division title. Even Kurt Angle, and all of those dudes are at least 210 pounds or higher in weight, which is amazing. And then I think the only other person that I could see defending their title on WWE soil would probably have to be AJ Francis or Top Dollar with his digital media title. Again, probably against someone the likes of like maybe Dijak, or perhaps like maybe someone the likes of like Baron Corbin, or something like that, which in my opinion sounds pretty good on paper. But we gotta talk about the PLEs, because this past year WWE has been red hot, dating all the way back to WrestleMania 40 in Philly, Backlash in Lyon, France, King and Queen in the ring in Jeddah this past Saturday, Clash at the Castle in Glasgow. WWE has been red hot. So the question is, what are the pros and cons of WWE having a PLE in collaboration with TNA? Well, obviously, again, as I mentioned, the biggest pro is that TNA would get the chance to have their champions defend their titles on WWE soil. The con of it is basically the opposite. Only the TNA stars would defend their titles, but it would most likely end up being against some of TNA's biggest stars that they have right now. Would that technically be considered a con? No, not really. But at the same time, when you look at it on paper, from a producer's standpoint, from a content creator's standpoint, it's all about who's the biggest star. Who are the biggest stars from both company, from both shows, from both brands, and who exactly would defend what title? Right now, the two biggest stars right now, or actually, sorry, the three biggest stars in TNA right now are Moose, Jordan Grace, and Mustafa Ali. Right now, Moose is the TNA World Champion. Grace holds the Knockouts title, and Ali holds the X Division title. So those will probably be the three that may end up having to defend their titles at a future WWE PLE. But I think the biggest thing that a lot of people would love to see is NXT having their own like Bound for Glory series. And for those who are curious about the Bound for Glory series, that tournament is crazy. And it's interesting because when you think about when you think about TNA, one pay-per-view comes in the mind. It is definitely the Bound for Glory series. And what's interesting is that you have had so many people show up to, you know, compete in the Bound for Glory series. Guys like AJ Styles, guys like Jeff Hardy, Samoa Joe, guys like Gunner and Crimson. You know, all these guys have had you know, all have had, you know, their time in the spotlight. So I could totally see WWE taking the rights to the pay-per-view Bound for Glory and turning it into the PLE known as NXT Bound for Glory. Think about this. During WrestleMania season, during WrestleMania week. Think about this. Think about this. Monday night, right? Monday night, the final Raw before WrestleMania. Tuesday night, the final NXT before NXT Bound for Glory. Wednesday night, WWE Hall of Fame. Thursday night, NXT Bound for Glory. Friday night, you would have SmackDown, and then Saturday and Sunday, you would end up having both nights of WrestleMania, and then of course you would have the Raw after WrestleMania and the Tuesday after Bound for Glory. Which in my opinion, I feel like that right there would be the perfect schedule, the perfect scheduling lineup, because when you look at what happened during this past year's Hall of Fame, they started with Paul Heyman kicking off the Hall of Fame. Paul Heyman kicked it off, and usually it's the big guns that end up ending the show and not kicking it off. But this year it was not the case. So I feel like that right there could be the lineup, but I can even also see the main roster having their own PLE in collaboration with TNA. They could do shows like WWE Victory Road, or perhaps perhaps even WWE Genesis, or even going back to NXT, because that the main roster has War Games. I feel like it would only be right if NXT had NXT Lethal Lockdown. Think about that. NXT Lethal Lockdown. That right there would just be that right there would be incredible. I really don't know if this would actually happen or not, but I could totally see it happening at some point down the road, because right now WWE has already partnered not just with TNA, but also now with Pro Wrestling Noah, where AJ Styles will be competing against somebody. I think oh my god, I don't remember the guy's name. Let's see here. I think I believe he's gonna be competing. He'll be wrestling at Pro Wrestling Noah in a couple of weeks. I believe against. If I'm having, let's see here, July 13th. Yeah, so he'll be a part of Pro Wrestling Noah in a couple of in a few weeks. He'll be wrestling Naomichi Marufuji. I'm like probably I'm like butchering the name, so I do apologize if I butcher his name, but but it'll be Saturday, July 13th, which I believe is going to be on the weekend of. So I think that's the weekend of Money in the Bank, if I remember correctly. Um, at Pro Wrestling Noah's show, Destination 2024, I believe is their big show. So it's gonna be interesting because this will be AJ's excuse me, first match for Pro Wrestling Noah in his entire career, and it'll take place at the Nippon Budokan in Japan, somewhere in Japan, which is pretty awesome. So it's awesome that WWE is making all these different headlines, because now it buys into the question. It buys into the question of whether or not WWE will partner with TNA and bring in their PLEs as their own. Bring in TNA's PLEs as their own. Again, NXT Bound for Glory, WWE Victory Road, WWE Genesis, NXT Sacrifice. The possibilities are out there, but I want you guys to post in the comments below your thoughts on this whole thing, and do you think it should happen? And if so, let your voices be heard, because maybe we can make this happen. Maybe we can make this a trend. So make sure you guys share this video all throughout social media, and let the world know that we want this to happen. So let me know down in the comments below, and that'll do it for this week's episode of WWE's Biggest Issue. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys want more episodes of WWE's Biggest Issue in the future, then make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and as always, make sure you guys are following me on all of my social media. All of my ads will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.